Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to use RandomFlow and Greeble Bake to create texture map details which we can use to detail our model as secondary details or tertiary details. So we're just going to use a default primitive plane for that and make all of our greebles right here. So um, what we're going to do is, I think, start with symmetry. I mean, start with asymmetry without that is without the mirror modifier, and then try symmetry later on. Okay. So for this, we're going to use random loop extrude. But first, I'm going to show you something about the baking or the baker cycles baking in Blender, because you can only bake from cycles and not Eve. So for example, if we have this detail, so you have to have this kind of inset margin, and that can be produced using this, the loops inset thickness, and that is also the same with random panels. So the most of the operators or random operators or random flow uses inset and not extrusion in the script. So inset is the same as extrusion. So this is extrusion and this is inset. However, with extrude, you immediately extrude the face, but with inset, you inset it first, and then you can press something like control to drag the face in or out of the source mesh. And this is the inset is what random flow is using, not extrusion. This is because you have to take account the depth, or I mean the thickness when baking, because if you don't have thickness, you can see that this will be what the, if we try to raise it up, we can see the faces there, but if we turn cavity off, this is what the bake will see, and it will not bake any details, because for Greeble Bake, for example, the bake to object will be a plane created by the script, and all of the details will be uh, extracted or baked from this position right here, or the Z direction. And it's looking at this, so there's no detail because all of the faces are extruded straight towards the uh, positive Z axis. But if we introduce thickness, now this will be the detail that the bake will see. And for the height of this of the faces, the displacement, you will have to bake the displacement map to actually get the height information from this. But this is what the normal will see. There will be no height information in the normal. It will only have this information right here, the separation of each of the panel islands. And for AO, I guess AO can have different result based on the um, proximity of the faces together. But this is what the normal will see, and for the depth or the height of the faces, we will have to bake the displacement for that. But do not use zero thickness or inset thickness from the random operators when doing this kind of bakes. Okay, so restore operator default. Okay, let's try and build the Let's try and layer the Greeble details from this primitive plane. And we're going to use something like random loop extrude. So 3 loops, square 80. So this means that 3 loops are used, and with 80 ratio means it means that 80% of the selected faces will be used. That is from the source selection and when subdivided using the subdivision property here and also from here. So the resulting faces from that, 80% of that will be used for creating the panel islands. Let's turn the cavity on, or maybe not 80. Let's just go for something. Let's just use the default and click on this manually. Okay. So we might need to pump this up to level 32 to see some interesting patterns. Let's set the solver to square all of them, and panel size, this is in percent. You can change it to number like that. So in 4.2 also, there's a bug in the redo panel. If you use the redo panel, make it disappear and modify the view angle or the zoom range of the from the source object. When you show the redo panel again using F9 and try to change something like this, try to change the UI. So for example, if we want to use percent, this UI panel here, this text should say loop panel size percent, but it doesn't change unless you press F9 again, and there it goes. It changed correctly. But if you haven't touched the viewport, you can see that it's changing correctly. So if you don't want to have this bug, just use 4.1. But if you're using 4.2, then you can go to the preferences of the RandomFlow add-on and use the confirm menu instead. There will be an OK button here, and then you can use the redo panel here, and the bug will be mitigated, but it won't be as prevalent or as persistent. Okay, let's create the detail. Let's change this to 2%. So we're just going to let's try number and use something like 20 faces for the maximum of the face islands. Okay. Um, I want to make the inset depth lighter. So 0.01, 0.015, 0.02. And also the inset thickness. So 0.003. We can skip this. You can skip typing this same value for this loop here, loop number 2 for loop number 3, by simply hovering the mouse over that property, then pressing Ctrl C, then Ctrl V, and Ctrl V. Okay. Okay, there we go. We have our faces right there. And we can introduce more chaos here by creating another. randomized result. So it still has the primitive plane in selection, so you can just keep using any random operators that deals with geometry. Then we can use something like random tubes and increase the resolution and increase the margin as well so they don't stick out in the boundary edges. And also the depth. The depth here is the width of the tubes. And increase the amount, the margin, and then the amount. So I suggest you read the online documentation, and also in the other questions section, you can find the all you can find out all about the redo panels in Blender. Level. We can use a single value for that. I've actually reported the UI bug in Blender, but it's labeled as normal priority, so it hasn't been dealt with. 0.005, 0.008. Okay. And we can introduce more chaos here. So 0.05, some more chaos. Let's try random cells. Increase the resolution. Whoop. Let's choose the preset and this one, pull 100 individual depth and increase the resolution to make the faces smaller because it deals with the randomization is dependent with the underlying topology. And this is the hard limit for the cuts property is 24. Oh, I mean the soft limit is 24. But you can go above this by manually entering a value. So then there's a new soft cap which is 50. But you can go past the initial soft cap by manually entering a value. Okay, let's actually this that those faces are actually um extruded up straight so the baker won't see them, but I have another solution for that. There is no inset thickness. Oh, there is. Okay. Don't forget that solution. This is the solution. So just increase the thickness and make it. What? I forgot that I actually added this. God, that's so useful. Okay, and 200. I think that's a bit too much. Just 100, and then increase the resolution to something like 80, and the thickness. So I can go to 80 cuts because we are using just a simple plane and it only contains a single face, okay? So for higher resolution selection, of course, you have to be very careful with the amount of cuts that you are using. Now let's try and bring down the depth or the height of the extrusion. So I'll just save this first GBake. Okay, now that we have that, we can go about and bake this. But first we have to turn the curve object into a mesh using RFlow. Apply mesh. You can also bevel this using the bevel modifier, and that detail will also be baked into the texture map. Also, if you are using the bevel node in the shader, that effect can also be baked into the texture map. Okay, let's bake this, and let's go to images right here, and let's have fun with the texture maps that we created. For the displacement map, we can actually use the displacement map as to add to the base color, to add some gradation to the base color, or just use it as a temporary diffuse map so we can view the effect of the other texture maps much better. And of course, its primary use as a displacement map. Okay, so let's bake this. Let's go to Greeble Bake, and turn on Bake Select Images. Do not conform to shape because we're just using the primitive plane, which is the default shape. And let's use normal AO and displacement. For the AO, let's just use 16. The higher the samples for this, the less noise you will have. But of course, with the additional, um, which will affect the baking speed, of course. And for the others, this means the other map except the AO. So for normal displacement and the rest, well, we can just use two samples, and that won't really produce any noise at all. So just for AO and others. And we have the margin. So for this one, uh, origin point, which means that the 0 point of the displacement will be at the origin point. So this is pure black, and anything above it will be 0, 0.1 in terms, 0.2, 0.3 in terms of brightness. And the brighter the pixel, and the higher will be the displacement. Okay, so origin points, we're just going to use the origin point. Lowest geometry, if there is something extruding far beyond the origin point, we're going to use lowest geometry. And selected vertices, if you had something like extruded geometry here and you've selected these faces, you can manually select these faces, and this area will be used as the 0 point for the displacement. If you have selected the option for the depth location, the selected vertices. But for this, since we don't have any of those exotic geometries protruding under the origin point, we're just going to use the default origin point option. Okay, so bake to last images, image. We don't have there's a default image to this, so but if you want, you can put a name on it, and all of the map will be named after this. We'll have a prefix using this, and the suffix will be depending on the map that you bake. So for example, 123 here, the name 123 underscore normal 123 underscore AR 123 underscore displacement, and those images will be packed in this blend file, so Blender doesn't automatically clean them up and turn them into blank images. You can then choose to save it, and because of the suffixes, you can save them into a single folder and then use Node Wrangler to assign them to a shader, and the Node Wrangler will automatically place them correctly as the displacement as the normal. It doesn't have anything for AO, but you can manually just place it. And also the diffuse and the emit. So those underscore suffixes will come in handy for Node Wrangler. Okay, we turn the curve into mesh. Yes, we did. Select everything, and then we're going to the bake origin. We don't have to use this because we will only use this if we have an object existing that we can use as a bake to object. But if you have this blank, then the script will use a temporary bake to object to bake the texture maps, then delete that after the operation. So go ahead and also read all about the Greeble Bake online documentation. You can find it in the preferences. You can find the link in the preferences of the add-on or in the product page, and that is true for all the add-ons that I have. All the online documentation link are in the add-on preferences or in the product pages. Okay. Bake origin, we're going to use the plane, our source object, because we are using its origin point as the 0 point for the displacement. Okay, let's hope this works. Size is 1. This is the bake 2 plane. Offset is 0.05. Okay. Default is okay. The width, the map, let's just use 1024 for speed and for the yeah, for the sake of the speed and time of the video. Be careful in using 4K and 8K. This will be very slow depending on your system. Okay, let's bake this. Bake. You have to select everything, okay, that you have to bake, and just wait until it finishes. The speed is, the more objects you have, the more the baking process will be slow. It depends on the resolution and the amount of objects that the speed of the bake is depends on the amount of objects and the resolution. This is our AO, and this is our bake normal. Look at that. So okay, okay, we are going to use this on a simple building. Okay, right here, random panels, square top merged, and increase the resolution. So this is just an example. So for example, this is a building. This is a background as a background asset that's going to be rendered like in this distance, not hero distance. So if you're wondering how can I UV this, you can see the mark sharp, the um, edges with their seams mark. You can then just UV editor, unwrap this using those, and then use text tools to make this. Use the text tools add-on to make these islands straight. At least uh, all those islands have been pre-marked for you, and you will have less work in order to make this UV map uh, more straighter for how angular the object is. Okay, a C. No, shader is S. Okay, new shader and Control T. You have so this shortcut Control T is only available if you activate Node Wrangler in the add-on in the user preferences. This comes with Blender, or if you're using the new version in the extensions, you can just download it for free in the extensions. I don't know why they did the extensions. They said they want to save space, but all of the I don't know, all of the add-ons are actually very light. I don't know, whatever. Let's go. Let's use displacement for the color at first, and then the normal for the normal, and then in Victor use normal map, and AO. Let's multiply it to the base color. You can skip the AO if you want. If you have, of course, developed or generated or created your own diffuse for this, then you can just get rid of the displacement. We're just using it proxy or temporary, as a temporary diffuse color. Oops, not there, right? But in front of the color ramp, and select multiply or use multiply for that. Oh, we forgot the. Since this model is angular, we can just use cube projection. Okay, let's change the HDRI or make this less yellow. So we can affect the color using the displacement. Okay, so after this, you can just plug and play this shader to any of the buildings in your scene, and you can create variations of this by creating another copy using this icon here, and then affect the scale and the location to create a variation in the look of your model. This is how you can create multiple looks just from a single just from a single uh, shader. But we can go farther than that by using randomization. It's the normal working. Yes, I think the normal is working. Okay, so we're going to try and create a randomizer, a pair object randomizer for this. Okay, input. Let's see, object info, random, scale, or random location. We can probably use random location. Hope this works. So you can see that if you create another object, it's gonna have a different look than the other ones. But I think we can affect this more using color ramp. Wait, noise texture, white noise, and use one dimension. Wait, 2D or 1D. Okay, value, and then math. Use add, and let's see the result. There we go. There we go. You can randomize location of the texture map in the XYZ. Maybe you can try scale, but this will, I think, warp the texture map. There you go. So we can just use it for location. Let's try for rotation. No, definitely not for rotation. So, okay, I'm going to set the origin point in the farthest vertex in the z-axis. Extra sixth or set origin. Okay, so I can scale it down like that. Variation scale. Okay. So for example, you have these variations of buildings here, and you can just play around with this value, with the add value, and you can see that the textures are changing. Okay, so have a look at this. So you can pause the video and see this configuration. This is just the basic stuff. You can do more by experimenting on the nodes. Okay, so let's try this one with the displacement, and we're going to use, instead of using the displacement modifier, we're going to use the displacement in the shader. Okay, displacement. Let's go to vector and displacement and set this to height and set this to the displacement in the material output and scale. Let's start by zero point 0.1. We need extra resolution for this. So let's try, let's give it, not try, but actually give it a subdivision modifier. And you can actually go for this look. But if you don't want the softening of the edges, you can just use the simple. This will increase the resolution without the increase in the without actually smoothing uh the mesh. Turn this off to see the resolution. I guess we can try with that, and then go to material, and in displacements, I'm not in displacement, in the settings, the displacements and the surface, use displacement only. There we go. And it's not looking good. 0 for the mid level, and raise this up 2. So the more resolution you have, the better the displacement will be. There is, some of the edges are separating. Can you see that? When I increase there you go, it's ripping apart. That is because of the mark sharp edges. So we're going to get rid of that, clear sharp, and there we go. So for displacement, if you're rendering a scene, and this is closer to the camera and you don't want just the flat look of the normal map, because we're using the same shader, but we can duplicate this and get rid of the shader displacement effect, and use the same material right here. There we go. Okay, so this is for far away objects. We don't need displacement because they're so far away. The viewer will not really notice that. So it's actually it's going to make the render a lot faster if you do that. But for closer, if this building is closer to the camera and you want more details for it, you have to use displacement to actually break up. You can see that the outline here, for example, It looks better here because the profile, it's being broken up by all those extra details using the displacement. So you will only use displacement if you want uh, a detailed object if they are closer to the camera. But for far away objects or background assets, you can just use normal maps, or even yeah, use normal maps or bumps. I guess we'll increase the let's try increase the subdivision. Okay. And a good thing about this, so this is not going to reflect on the view part. This is only going to be, the displacement is only going to happen in render, which is good. It keeps the viewport light as you model. And the advantage of this from the displacement modifier is that this is more versatile, and you can do stuff like this. So change the randomize the you can that actually looks good. Randomize cool. Randomize the texture for each of the building. So you don't in you we actually have the same geometry but different rotation and different scale, and look, it's actually they actually look like different buildings. So you can just use a random flow to create like 20 base meshes of this, make it lighter uh, by limit dissolve. If you do this, then you can't use the displacement anymore because it needs um, quads for the displacement or for the subdivision modifier. So for objects that are closer to the camera, do not lose the quad structure. Keep the quad structure because you need it for the subdivision. If you use subdivision for the in-guns, look it won't look really good, or it won't look good. Okay, so it actually looks good. Let's lower this back to 3 and play around with something. So I want to play around with lights. So this is how I started with familiarizing myself with the shaders in Blender. Cursor selected. What the? Cursor selected. World origin. Let's try and use AO for the emission. So input ambient occlusion, connect this to the color, set this to 25, and bring out the color ramp. Use backspace to bring this to the default, to get this back to the default position. This is only available if you have Node Wrangler installed. Okay, and let's try and look at the result. Use the color ramp. Turn this on so it won't affect other objects in the scene. Use different color. And we're going to break this. We're going to break this up. You can use textures from what is that sort of G GS placement. Yeah, you can use textures from that to break this line up, or you can just use the vanilla textures from the shaders. Okay, mix color. Set this to multiply and Control T. Change this to shader Let's try, not shader, texture. Let's try checker texture. And vector here. Increase the factor strength and set this to black. Let's try this. And increase the resolution. You, you can see that it's breaking the light up. And where's the scale? Oh, there we go. 50. Something like that. So that's how sometimes I create those interesting light effects you see from my render. Just really basic stuff. I like it when when you can achieve really good effects using just a few simple connections with shader nodes instead of just all those. You have a bunch of 100 nodes here, 100 nodes here, then there's a bunch of spaghetti connections. That is really confusing. So you can then play around with this more. You can see that the lights also react. Okay, let's try. Gonna set this or duplicate this. I'm going to duplicate this and then scale, rotation, and scale. Rotate. I think it's because of the normal map. The Let's try and re-unwrap this. There we go. It's do rotation and scale 30. The light effects too much for this. Okay. You know what? This looks like it can pass for a power, a bunch of power supplies that's connected to some kind of factory. There we go. It's really good. Oops. Point 0.8, was it point 0.8 or point 0.6? Point 0.4, I think it was point 0.6. Yeah. So you can just keep you can just creating those maps using Greeble Bake. You can create another. Okay, let's create the asymmetry this time before we end this video and create another plane. Not asymmetry, but symmetry. Keep mixing those two up. So XY and they are mirrored in the XY axis. One, two, three. Okay, let's reduce this to something like 24. get rid of the symmetry line, and add a bunch of stuff we added before. Cubes, increase the resolution, and then uh, I think it was this the cells. There we go. And then select everything. Oh no, the curve object, apply, and turn it into a mesh. Then select everything here. So there's also an error in 4.2 about the matrix. My matrix code. The matrix code, of course, deals with the positioning of the objects in terms of local and global space. The codes work with Blender 4.1 and below, up to the earliest version of Blender, to the dinosaur days. And suddenly some of my script that involves those matrices have been putting out incorrect results. So just be aware of that. If you do see that, report it to me in the Discord channel. Okay, baking. Let's go to. I don't know why did actually touch those. It worked fine from before. So do not bake to the last image. Actually create an image. Let's just use 1, 2, 3 here to create another image. Actually use mirrored and bake. Select baked origin. That is in the selection. So I think it's a plain one. And bake. I was actually searching for a progress script, the percentage script that will show you the progress of the bake, but it was not available in Python. It's only available in the back end code of Blender, which is, I think, C++ or something like that. Mirror displacement, mirrored AO, and mirrored normal. Okay. Let's try it here. And let's go to the shader and use mirrored AO, mirrored displacement, and mirrored normal. And set this to 1 and increase the resolution of this vision. Actually decrease the displacement, something like 2. And there you go. Let's try and randomize the result. And take a look at the non-displaced look with just the normal. It actually looks good. And let's try and randomize this. However, the AO is dependent on the geometry. So without the displacement, it's going to be just like that. Even if you change the randomize the location of the texture. So let's get the displacement back going and see the result. This. So this is our building. You can, because of the displacement, you can render this closer. to your hero subject, and it's up to you to, of course, make to add more stuff to this shader to make it look much better. But with just our basic setup, you can see that it actually looks good at some, especially at this distance. You can see that it looks compelling or believable as a some kind of I don't know, steampunk or cyberpunk. Use smaller values means the map will be bigger, and higher values means the map will be smaller. Okay, so I'm gonna end the video here. And yeah, as you can see, the random flow and the Greeble Bake add-on is quite a powerful combination, and also creative flow. I've been using this as a shadow. It's been living under the shadow of random flow, but creative flow is actually really a really good add-on. I will create a video in the future which will have creative flow as the main subject and not random flow. So with just this with just this simple geometry, we can have this effect using random flow and dribble bake and texture maps. So this is the primer shape or the first shape, which is the big shapes, just to break up the profile of the object, and we have the texture map as the secondary shapes. There you go, your sci-fi building. And then you can build a bunch of this using random flow. A bunch of these buildings using random flow, and just use the same maps on them and randomize the location of those of the texture per object using the setup that I made. You can just drag and drop the material right here. There you go. And also add the displacement if you're going to use displacement. Uh Subdivision if you're using displacement. Sorry about that. Subdivision surface, and depending on the geometry, let's start with 3. Okay, and increase it to 4. So remember, only use displacement and increase topology using the subdivision modifier. If the model is closer to the hero or the main subject, if you want more details sticking out a bit, but if it is farther away, get rid of the displacement and just use the normal map. Okay, so yeah, that is it for this video, and I hope you learned something new about the add-ons. And tell me if you like this longer format more or want to have a shorter format, which is going to be quicker but with less info. Okay. So yeah, if you have any questions, use the comment section below or the links in the description. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't. And I'm also going to planning to get back on making Blender tutorials, vanilla tutorials for the functions, just to keep me busy on things. Okay, so yeah. Thank you for watching and you have a nice day.